the most favorite file system ever for any operating system. Let's go over that today. Let's go over file systems because I'm always asked about using X file system or what is my favorite file system? What's the fastest file system? What's the most reliable file system? What file system do I use when it's not either the fast or reliable one? Well, all these questions are going to be answered in this video, and you'll figure out what you might want to use in the future. All right, let's start this out with the hot garbage. And that's all the Microsoft file systems. That's NTFS, that's your FAT file systems, whether it's XFAT, FAT32, do I even say FAT16 and all the rest of them? Whatever. If it's a Microsoft file system, it underperforms, it's not reliable, it has bad journaling. I mean, you could go on for days on this one. I could probably make a 10-minute rant video on how much Microsoft sucks when it comes to file systems. It's just true. So yeah, if you're using Windows and you're wondering if NTFS is any good compared to any of these other ones I'm going to talk about today, the answer is just unequivocally no. I mean, it's just horrible, just absolutely atrocious. All right. With that out of the way, let's get on to the video though. What is the best file system? And the best file system in existence by far, by a mile. There's not even anything close to it. ZFS. ZFS is amazing. It's used in pretty much every single data center. There's a reason why it's number one. And it's just rock solid stable. It has been engineered that way from day one, has like 20 years worth of development. It is amazing. And there's really two iterations of ZFS out there. There's the open version, and then there's also like the Oracle version. However, some of the licensing's really kind of silly, so you don't see it in Linux much. And honestly, Linus Torvalds and the Linux kernel crew absolutely hate ZFS, and they just throw a bunch of shade its way, mainly because of its licensing. It's incompatible, and that's why a lot of people don't actually include it in Linux, because they're worried that Oracle might sue Linux over the usage of ZFS. So kind of a fun backstory there. But if you're going to use ZFS, go get yourself, if you want to do it free and you just want to have a really nice rock solid file store, well, get yourself a FreeNAS box, get that going, learn all about FreeNAS. I did an entire playlist when I first started this channel, and I love FreeNAS. It's by far my favorite. I would never use a Linux file system over FreeNAS, because FreeNAS uses FreeBSD as its base, and then ZFS as its file system, and I haven't found anything even close to that for free. So that's my free option. And if you have a ton of money to spend, let's say you have an extra $50,000 burning a hole in your pocket, Oracle makes fantastic ZFS storage appliances that are really, really good. So that is the best, most reliable, stable, but that's file systems, that's business, and that's like, you know, if you're going to store a whole bunch of your home movies, I'd probably put it on this FreeNAS box or something of that nature. But that's not to say the other file systems are bad. No, no, no. There's some really, really good ones, and I'm going to cover probably my two favorite ones in this video. First off, the best performance. So let's say on your desktop, you really want your file system to be fast, not necessarily stable. I mean, both these are stable that I'm going to be talking about, but not when compared to, let's say, ZFS. But for performance reasons, I would really recommend EXT4. I mean, it's tried, it's true, it's proven, but it's also very fast. It has really good performance numbers. It's very good file system, and it has a lot of compatibility. So there's other ones out there that might perform a little bit better, like XFS, and there's some other more obscure ones after that. Anyways, EXT4 is very, very good file system, very good performance-wise. I absolutely love it for most of my Linux installs, but in recent years, or actually really the past couple months, I've switched everything to BTRFS. So why would I switch to BTRFS if EXT4 is technically better performing? And the answer is I get a lot of really cool features, a lot of those ZFS features that I love, and the performance may not see. I don't really notice a performance hit, but I know based on like Phoronix benchmarks and those types of things, there is a performance hit, but it's not horrible. And it's like, hardly noticeable, if noticeable at all. So that's why I run BTRFS, because I get a lot of those ZFS features I missed. Now, you have to be very specific on how you use BTRFS, and you have to understand the file system. Otherwise, bad things can happen. So it is a badly misunderstood file system, as it's pretty new, and a lot of people misuse it, and it causes them to lose their data. So I want to get this out of the way starting out. First, you need to understand BTRFS's structure, and then two, you need to not use striping like RAID 0 or RAID 5 or RAID 6. These are just really bad RAIDs just in general. Like, I never use them in business, and I never use them here at the house, as I don't like them at all. I think they're horrible. But that's not to say never ever use them. You can use them if you like. I personally think only a noob or an idiot would use RAID 5 or 6, or someone that's just literally strapped for resources, as it's just not that good performance when you have a failed disk, or it's just horrible. I absolutely hate RAID 5 and 6. I think goes without saying. Why I say this is because if you just go buy another drive for RAID 5, you can get RAID 10, which you get parity, and you get striping, and you get mirroring. You get all the benefits of RAID 0 and 1 with none of the downside. It's awesome. So RAID 10 is where it's at. So that's RAID 5. Well, RAID 6, you have 4 disks, 3 to establish RAID 5, and then that extra one's called a hot spare. Well, you got 4 disks. What the heck are you doing? I mean, RAID 6 shouldn't exist, in my opinion. I guess it's just there to tell us who the silly people are that want to run RAID 6. I don't know. But anyways, use RAID 10. It is far superior in every which way. And when it comes to BTRFS, I usually establish a RAID 1, just a straight up clone or a mirror. And then if I have 4 disks of the same type, I'll go ahead and establish a RAID 10, because that's awesome. You can literally use 2 disks, and more than likely it's still going to work, which is fantastic. So RAID 10 is great, and you get a good performance bump. I think almost like 4x read, I think like 2x write or something of that nature. So RAID 10's really cool in that. But getting back to BTRFS, the really just the absolute best part of BTRFS is its snapshot capabilities. The ability to simply just take a quick snapshot and then revert back to it in a second, or just take a snapshot in literally a millisecond. That is amazing. This capability really unlocks me to do just some crazy things. I can just jump on my main machine here, do a RM RF /* wipe out my whole system, and go, no problem. And I can just throw a thumb drive in, chroot in, switch the grub over to a snapshot I took literally right before I did that. The whole process might take 2 minutes, which is great. And honestly, if the system was bootable, and let's say it was just I needed to get to TTY, I could literally restore it in seconds. So all these things are fantastic about BTRFS. Really, the thing that sells me on BTRFS, why I always use it, is the snapshot capability. That is huge. It just basically removes the need for backups and a lot of things in this regard when I'm messing around with the operating system. Now, all my really important information is still stored on a central file store, and that is backed up to the cloud. So when it comes to redundancy and those types of things, I never keep anything of importance on any of my workstations. I think that anybody can come along anytime, just zap all of that workstation. I'm like, oh, well, no problem. I'll check out my file store. Let's say my file store just gets zapped or just blows up, whatever happens, and nothing's recoverable. Even then, I still have encrypted cloud storage. Yes, that will take a long time to download. Yes, it will kind of be a pain in the butt to get everything going again, but it's still there. So no matter what happens, I think when it comes to data and file systems, you can be okay on any file system, even in TFS and FAT, as much as I throw hate and shade their way, but it's all duly deserved. I mean, it is a bad file system, or file systems. But these are really the basis of how I use my computers and the file systems I like to use. And that's my rationale behind it. Hopefully, in a perfect world, we'd see ZFS and Linux and Oracle come out and go, yeah, it's all open source. You can go do whatever you want with it. It's just, yeah, that would be great, but it's never going to happen. So I don't recommend ZFS for Linux at all. Obviously, with Linus Torvalds coming out and saying, don't use ZFS, well, that's kind of like the mind behind that Linux kernel that runs Linux. If he says not to use ZFS, we shouldn't use it. As I agree with his rationale. It's not really from a technical perspective, but from a licensing and a business perspective, I get it. You know, it's something that we need to be shy away from. So BTRFS gives me a lot of those tinker abilities and things I really love about ZFS. Maybe not so much the stability aspect of it, but at the same time, having just those features and using BTRFS properly, it gets me like 90% of the way there for ZFS. And I'm like, all right, good enough. And I'll use that for my workstations. But with all that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm always curious to see on the file systems what everyone uses, because there's some really funky ones out there. I know a lot of people, use like XFS or even RiserFS. I hear it's a killer file system. Dad joke. Anyways, with that said, I'll see you in the next one.